How many more around the corner, I wonder? We'll have to be extremely cautious. I wonder where this river flows. Oh, yes, there is. Quickly, quickly. Well, hello and welcome. My name is Joe, and I am the Panicked Monk, and you are watching Lost in Time, a Dwemer's Tale. We are continuing our way through Forgotten Crevice, a rather Falmer-infested cavern, series of caverns. And, man, these things hit hard. Looks like we're going to have to make our way through this area a little bit more cautiously than I thought otherwise. I kind of thought maybe that I had drawn them out, and there weren't any left in there, but obviously I was wrong. So that's kind of the fun part, I guess, about mods like this. That I have not used in the past, is that everything is new. There are surprises around every corner. You don't know what to expect, and it's kind of terrifying and exhilarating and fun, kind of all at the same time. So this has actually been really fun. I look forward to exploring more of these forgotten dungeons to see what lurks beneath the other caverns and structures. And I don't know how they're all created, if they're all cavern type caves like this, or if there's ruins, or how they're structured. I imagine it's a variety, so I look forward to seeing that. Oh, where is she going? What's going on here? Oh, she's onto something, but I haven't quite figured it out yet. Oh, nope, she found it. Oh, yeah. This has been a dangerous little stretch here. Thought we were doing pretty good once we got past the Charis that were spitting poison at us, but the dangers The dangers are not done with. Oh, what's following us? And where? Ugh. Alright, shield up. Shields up! Red alert! Nerd alert! We don't do too bad if we can stretch them out where I have some running room. Oh, that's how we got in. Where I have some running room to make some distance where the Conjured Wraith can do some damage. It's the tight quarters that get a little sticky. And I don't have anywhere to retreat to. Because I cannot stand toe-to-toe with these things for very long. One-on-one, yeah, one-on-one I can probably do okay with the shield, but even then, a couple hits with their axes and whatnot. It's a funny term, isn't it? Whatnot. And archers definitely pose a problem. Can't survive too many hits from them as well. In large part, I believe it's because I just have not sunk a lot into health, favoring stamina and magicka, wanting to make kind of a mage or magic favoring type of character. You'd never know it from this particular crawl since he's relying on sword and board for a lot, but just simply I need the protection that the shield can offer. Now, I got up there once, but man, I just can't seem to get back up there. That'd be ideal. Because they can't get up there. If I can lead them down and ambush them from that platform. But I'm having a tough time getting up there. And really, they're not following me far enough. They kind of give up after the Conjured Wraith dissipates or defeats them. I guess one of the two. Depends how close I am when they engage. Oh, there she is. That was actually kind of humorous. It's hard to say whether or not she got a beat down. Oh, yep, she did. Man, these buggers. Yeah, if it wasn't for this Wraith helping me out and softening them up, this would be just brutal. I'm definitely going to need to reevaluate my tactics after this particular crawl, I think, for sure. Hopefully I don't sound too nasally. A little bit of a stuffy nose right now. 'Tis the season. I'm a little susceptible to the fall and springtime pollens, etc. So at some point in the future, it'll be a couple episodes yet. I think I'm going to need to probably take some time and maybe go over Szenac from a more technical build, if you will, point of view. But I don't know if I'll make that kind of a side note, its own separate thing that's kind of unrelated to the story, or if I'll just spend some time in one of the upcoming episodes to go over some of that. We'll see. I'll record it and kind of go from there. If it seems like it's kind of running long and not really going to, or if it's going to be too long and detract from the story, then I'll make it its own thing and spend a little time going over perks and levels and future plans in a little more detail. Oh, these wide open spaces, man. They're not bad if I can drag the Wraith along for a ride and get her in the mix. It's kind of the standby at this point. Alright, we're back up to here. It looks tempting to jump into, but a really bad idea all at the same time. Last thing I want to do is get stuck down there and just be an open target for any archers or mages that may or may not be around the next corner. Well, it's a really well put together mod. I mean, like I said earlier, I'm really enjoying the variety. Well, variety because I've never seen it or never been through it, but it seems to be really well done. I really haven't run into any glitches at this point yet. It's aesthetically, it seems to be put together nicely. So, and having, oh God, really, having attempted to put together caverns and caves of this sort myself, I can appreciate that. This is not the easiest. This is not the easiest pieces to pair up and create in Creation Kit. There's a lot of things you have to do to kind of hide the seams and get the pieces in the right place. It's not. Some of the easier ones would be like the Nordic ruins, that kind of thing, where it's more structured and it's easier to snap the pieces into place. These more natural environments are a lot trickier. I mean, the pieces are created so that they do fit together, but they kind of fit together in a certain way. And if you're off or you have it spun around the wrong direction, it might look like it's in place, but you'll get into game and test it out and find that there's a big void or a gap. Or so these are, oh great, mages and an archer, fantastic. These are tricky things to put together. The dungeons like this with the natural caves, especially these big pieces. You got to get the right transitions, and so kudos to the author. That sounded like she disappeared. Well, she doesn't sense any danger, but I'm not really sure if I believe that. Let's pull her forward a little bit. Where are you? I know you're here. Where are you hiding? There you are. Oh, come on. A little closer than I wanted to on that one. That is. my spell didn't dissipate nearly as quickly as I would have liked to. You know, when I'm trying to make some ground, I blink back to my starting point much faster than I wanted, and in this case, kind of the opposite. So that's a spellcaster. Looks like she's hanging out in the back, otherwise these two would be going at it. Come on, go get her. Lightning too. Shock, which is not great for spell casting. I hope everyone's doing well. Thank you for coming back. I promise we will eventually make it out of these caverns. I can promise that will not be during this episode, but it will happen eventually. I like that kind of that blue, you know, I refer to it as kind of a bioluminescent thing going on in the rock structure that's on the ceilings. I kind of like that. Kind of adds a neat effect. There it is. I gotta get her. I gotta ferret this thing out. There she is. Ooh, ice spike now. I kind of would almost rather have the lightning over the ice spike. Oh, well that was fast. Oh, come on. God. Just brutal. Oh, that's a good one. There we go. God, if you can get close to them, the mages, you got a chance, but well, that's the trick, right? Getting close to the mage. And when you are the mage, well, the point is to stay away from the melee fighters. So I have to say that, God, and the archer, I thought, really? I've got decent armor, but yeah, these Falmer archers are still brutal on me. Well, just Falmer in general, I guess. They're tough at this level. Well, I don't know. They can be tough at a lot of levels. Oh, and Achara is fantastic. What a horrible little place. Well, big place. Actually, not all that little, is it? Come on. Get that thing. Whatever it is, wherever it is. Well, I know what it is. What makes you wonder, and I don't know if I've gone over this or I've kind of pondered the question, but what are these Falmer doing here? Now, given the history, it makes a lot of sense that they would be holed up in the Dwemer ruins and around the Dwemer structures. That's kind of what they know, and it's what was really readily made available, kind of gifted to them when the Dwemer left or disappeared. So there are obviously no Dwemer ruins here, so, you know, how did they stumble upon this? How did they get here? Also kind of leads into the question of I guess, are they here trying to colonize, or I mean, are they spreading out? Are they, is this an outpost for a future, surface attack? Is this a faction? Was there almost like a civil war that may have... great. Was there like a civil war that may have occurred among the Falmer themselves after the Dwemer had left? A faction that's more violent, such as the Falmer as we know them now. And could there have been a more... could there have been a faction of Falmer that were more peaceful and didn't want to attack or have vengeance upon the world for their plight? Are the Falmer as we see them now maybe a small subset of the Falmer? Maybe when they became corrupted and became what they are now, maybe that didn't happen to all of them. Maybe it only happened to a few, or half, or whatever percentage you want. And this is the remnants, with the original unaffected Falmer having died out, or maybe even killed by their brethren here. It's kind of an interesting theory, I think. So you would have the Falmer slaves, the Falmer that were blinded by the Dwemer, and maybe there was a population within those Falmer that were affected adversely because they were maybe in the immediate vicinity, or the ones that spent the most time studying the orb before Ysgramor drove them underground. So there was this population within the snow elves that became corrupted and started to become twisted. Maybe even well before the Dwemer left. Maybe the Dwemer drove them out into the wilds and the wastelands, such as we see here. As they became more feral and uncontrollable, the Dwemer either killed or they escaped and fled and began to repopulate as we see it now. It could be that if that's the case, maybe... So let's go with that for a minute. Let's just think about that for a second. So let's go with the assumption or the theory that when the snow elves reclaimed, or not reclaimed, or attempted to reclaim Skyrim, as they were there before the Atmorans even, if memory serves me correctly, if they reclaimed and took Saarthal from the Nords, because the Nords had discovered that orb, and the Falmer coveted it for themselves, and they took Saarthal by force, and they spent all this time studying the orb. So perhaps it's that group of Falmer that studied the orb that became tainted and contaminated and adversely affected by this orb. And if that's the case, when the snow elves were driven underground, when Ysgramor came back, these affected Falmer, perhaps through a combination of eating the mushrooms that blinded them, or maybe not, began to devolve, began to become twisted, even within their own ranks. Oh, that's... What am I doing here? Oh, I see. So maybe if that's the case, then there would be Falmer that are unaffected and would lead a normal life. And then there would be these twisted, corrupt, if you will, Falmer that began turning and into what they are now, devolving, and maybe even escaping the captors of the Dwemer, and then finding their way into these caves and living their wretched, vile lives as they are now. So that would leave the unaffected Falmer back in the Dwemer to be, live out their lives as. Oh, there we got a little clipping. This area does have a little bit of an alignment issue, but it's so far the only place that I've discovered that. So I do try to kind of go over that without giving it too much time. So okay, so now we have unaffected Falmer living their lives out with the Dwemer. We have corrupted Falmer that are either killed or escape or banished, somehow run out of Dwemer society, and they end up in places like this. Now, there was a Falmer uprising against the Dwemer. That could be a product of the unaffected Falmer, or it could have been the corrupted Falmer that we see now coming back, trying to wage war and weakening the Dwemer to destabilize their culture, if only for a short amount of time. And at this point, I could see that these creatures would not probably even recognize their own kind. Their minds are probably so twisted and so warped that they would kill, anything and everything that's not them, including their own kind. The Falmer that were still unaffected and in the Dwemer society. So when the Dwemer disappeared, it could be possible that these corrupted Dwemer could either sense or over time discovered that there was no more Dwemer to pose a threat to them, to get in their way, so they started to migrate back into the Dwemer city-states, probably killing any Falmer that might still be there, the ones that were not affected, which would have been, a fair amount, but these things probably would not care. They certainly wouldn't. I don't think they would have spared any, so it's very possible that, with the unaffected Falmer being blinded and without resources of their own, like these creatures have developed, they could have been probably easily wiped out by these corrupted creatures. So that's kind of a long-winded, but maybe it's a theory. It will be definitely. Oh, there's one up there. It might be something that Szenac will contemplate. That's for sure. There's another one there. That didn't really work. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that we have to get down below, and this is probably the only way to do it. That might have woke someone up. Yep. Now it's whether or not... Yeah, he does know we're here. Hit and run. Hit and run. Oh, archer. Hate archers. Let's bring our breathe back. Or not. Come on. Come on. There you go. I'm gonna get myself trapped out here. I definitely don't want to fall. Oh, looks like she got him. Good. Take the Dumox and the small stuff. Make our way. So we have a couple things to... Oh, there's one. A couple things that need to be looked at over the series. And that is, well, actually, characters. This Colette and who she was. Remember, that's who we've decided to name our Avenging Wraith after, as kind of it's a strong figure in Senac's past that, again, kind of like a Patronus. It's what he's not purposely choosing to create. It's kind of just what's manifesting, is this figure of Colette. So she is obviously important to Senac's history. Inadak is also obviously really important. We've talked about him several occasions. And actually last episode had a very lengthy dialogue that Szenac recalled. So there's two characters there from Senac's history that need some discovery and some explanation on, their importance. How did Szenac come about to be under the tutelage of Inadak? And again, who is this Colette, and why was she important? And these are a couple things that will come out as we make our way through, and as Szenac begins to discover kind of who he is and who his people were in relation to everything else. At the moment, it's kind of all about the Falmer, but these other important characters will come to light because they need to. They're part of his history, part of what made him who he is. They're the influential people in his life. These two, at least. There's actually quite a bit of good stuff down here in these barrels, but Just, taking food items other than maybe salt from these creatures, from the Falmer here. I don't think it's something. I don't think it's something that Szenac's interested in. It's how long has it been in these barrels? I don't know. Outside of maybe an occasional fish that maybe he'll examine the properties of. I don't know. Clam meat doesn't seem like it's a good idea. Any of that kind of stuff that's not cured, especially. He's not going to take the ale or the wines or anything like that. He will take the potions, obviously. And if I do happen to take a wine or an ale, it's most likely by mistake. This is kind of a dangerous little area. There's a lot of ambush points that we can find ourselves in a world of hurt real fast in. Let's scout ahead a little bit. Oh yeah, see? I think it's interesting, when we had cast the Conjured Wraith down below, she came up through that corridor, but she didn't trigger any of the Falmer that were sitting there. Or she was running fast enough that they gave up, but it's kind of interesting. It would have been nice if she had at least put a little bit of damage to them. Those walkways above, over my head too, make me a little nervous. Fighting retreat. It's tough with the archers. Oh, yep, see, there's somebody. Hitting us from above. So, that's cool. We really don't have any way to get up there. Man, if I had a phase shift or a blink spell about now, that would be pretty helpful. My son is upstairs pounding around on the... I don't know what he's doing, but I'll try to clean it out as best I can. But if I can't, I guess that's just kind of gonna have to be how it is. Oh, where in the... Oh, there. God. Hate the ice spikes. Let's try our hand at a staff. I don't have any super good ranged spells, though. Maybe we can do something with this thing. Oh, you got her. Well done. Let me just get out into the wide open to take a look. Take all the Dumox. If I had a little better stealth capability, I could take advantage of some of the features down here, or the choke points, but I just don't. And I don't have any rune spells. That would be pretty helpful as well. But, you know, remember, Szenac, our intentions were not to create a destruction magic heavy character, so we really need to amp up what we have in conjuration and start getting ourselves set up good with illusions and that kind of thing. I think after this we're going to have a good sum of gold to work with to buy a lot of spells that we just don't have now. Unfortunately, being at the college, we have access to all of that. So we're really going to need to take advantage of that when we get back. Make sure there's nothing left down here. I don't think there is, but better safe than sorry. Man, this is like the dungeon for Charis eggs, though. If you're looking for Charis eggs and you want a lot of them, Forgotten Crevice is the place to go. A fair amount of glowing mushrooms too, which is nice. I confess I don't know a lot of the different alchemy recipes, but I do know glowing mushrooms are useful for smithing. And I believe Charis eggs are good for invisibility, but I'm not positive. Oh, hello. Ow, that hurt. Shield up. Bam. There we go. That was a direct result from our conjured wraith softening this thing up. So those Falmer war axes actually are pack a punch. At least they do for me. What else is up here? I'm sure there's more. There always is. I think that's going to be one of the next dual casting spells that I go for, is Ghost Walk Illusion. You know, and the more I think about it, once I get out of this cavern, I think I might do a short level up video, kind of separate. I think there's a lot that I can go over. We're going to pick up a few levels in this space, so it seems appropriate. So keep an eye out for that. I'll let you know. It's going to be a couple episodes, like I say. We are not through this thing yet. Look at this place.
By new medium, this is huge. I see you.
There we go. Get her to run interference. I should have taken the opportunity to help double team him. There we go. Man. Oh, jeez. These things are going to be the death of me. Be sure to put on your heavy armor, Szenac. It's Falmer out. Again, I mean, there's so much space to cross to try to get to that archer that I'm going to have, 3-4 arrows into me before I can get to him. If I tried to do a hand-to-hand. And I can't take 3 or 4 arrows in me. I can't do it. I'll be tumbling down on the ground. This is pretty cool, though. Man. It's kind of impressive that they're taking their conjured wraith down so quickly. She gets... God... God, what the... Son of a... So, as I was saying, the conjured wraith actually gets fairly strong after they've been defeated by an opponent. They pick up like 150% of the opponent that slew them in a lot of categories: health, magicka, damage, that kind of thing. So they're like super. Actually, it's kind of a lot of fun to pit these things up against like death lords and overlords and stuff like that in the Draugrs, because they just get wicked powerful. But these Falmer archers are just taking her out left and right, which definitely, Szenac knows that. That's gonna, that makes him nervous. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I think that's going to wrap up this episode. I would like to thank you for joining me today, and until next time, safe travels.